and welcome to another episode of the Snowies Camping Show. If you are new here and you haven't caught up with us yet, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast so you don't miss another episode. If you're watching on YouTube as well, you can also subscribe there. And we also have a Facebook group as well, the Snowies Camping Show on Facebook, where we talk about all the episodes we've had and also upcoming topics and things like that. So if you want to get involved in the community, jump over there and join up. Today, we are talking about water storage for camping, and you're with Ben and Lauren also if you've not been here before as well. So water storage for camping needs vary. A couple of different factors, size of family, how long you're going away for, all that sort of stuff.
Yep, and it's heavy, right? Like water is a litre of water is a kilo of weight. So I've often looked at the guidelines that are out there that say, I think like 5 litres of water per person. Or if you go by Russell Coit's guidelines, it's 5 litres of water per person per degree over 25 degrees per man.
Yeah.
But the base that probably the most common one I've seen is 5 litres of water per person per day. And I have seen up to 10 litres. If you go by that 10 litre rule and you're going away for a week and you don't have many filling options, that's a whole lot of water to carry.
That's a lot of water, yeah.
I've never needed that much per day. I carry 30 to 40 litres at any given time, knowing I can top up along the way, but I've never actually used 10 litres of water per person per day. It's a huge amount. But so 40 litres of water, that's 40 kilos in the car. It's a fair bit of weight and a fair bit of space. So.
And it moves around. It's not like just a heavy weight that just sits there. It's like when you turn or if you're going on rocky roads, it physically moves around as well.
That's right, yeah. So this goes back to our packing light sort of episode with roof rack weights and that sort of thing, where a lot of people will put jerry cans on the roof of fuel and they also do it with water, and it becomes this kind of dynamic load on the roof and it's heavy. So you do need to have a bit of a think about how you carry it. I am always trying to get all the water in my car as low down as possible. Yeah. I've had a few different ways of doing that. We'll talk about sort of things that can come out of the car, smaller vessels, but I know you've got a built-in tank that we use. Yeah. But I've always got we've got it in front of us at the moment, these jerry cans, and I've used like
it's sort of like the default option, isn't it? It's the most common option. People just have jerry cans. I mean, I've got heaps of jerry cans at home and I don't use them really anymore, which I'll touch on a bit later, but they are definitely the default option.
They're affordable, they're tough, and they're reliable in terms of how they carry the water. You can get, I think this one in front of us here is 5 litres, 10 litres. You can get 20 and sort of 40 big cubes and stuff.
They're different shapes as well. Like you can get the more square ones or the narrow ones.
Yeah, so think about how it fits in your car. Yeah. You probably should store them upright, I guess, with the cap at the top. I've always wanted to lie mine down, but I've been worried about whether that lid will leak a bit once the water sort of it heats up in the car and a bit of pressure builds up.
That's true.
But I've always liked to carry 10 litre versions because it's not so heavy that you can't lug it around the campsite or anyone can lug it around the campsite and easy to pour out of. If you've got a 20 litre one or bigger, it becomes a fair bit of weight to try and pour stuff out of, and you probably need to think about taps on the bottom. But they've served me pretty well for many years. I've got like a shelf in the back of my Patrol, and I had to put them on top of the shelf, so the weight was sort of up a little bit above some of the
because they wouldn't fit underneath, or do you have drawers underneath?
No drawers, just an empty space. But I'd have to put them on their side, and then I've got concerns about it leaking. So, but we'll move on to shortly onto my other option that I've moved to now to try and be able to fit it in underneath that shelf. But the jerry cans have served me well for many years. They're just, I think it's a high density polyethylene. Yeah. I've never really had, maybe from start, a little bit of flavour, but once you've flushed them out a few times, they're pretty clean.
I mean, I guess they are sort of a lot easier to clean, and when you get the clear ones, you can see if there's any sort of build up or anything inside them that needs to be flushed out. I know you can get sort of the army green ones that aren't see-through. I have had people ask before whether or not getting the clear ones or the sort of the ones that have more opacity to them are a better option. The green ones are a better option than the opacity ones from an algae perspective. Like if you're carrying water for a long time or if you're storing it in jerry cans,
I think the green ones you talk about don't let light through. Like they're not opaque at all, whereas the one in front of us here has got a milky colour to it, so it lets light through. I think as with anything, if you let light into a vessel like that and there's anything in there that could start to grow algae.
Yeah.
That light sort of encourages that growth.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why the dark color ones are sold as well for water storage, usually in a large volume. But I'd probably tend to use that maybe in a semi-permanent sort of location. If you've always got it in the car and you just got a hose coming from it or something, and you're using the hose to empty it out, you're just filling it up in the top, then it's always in the light and never moves. You probably don't clean it as often because it sits in your car. It's probably better to have a green one there. But I've got clear ones like we've got in front of us here, and because I fill it up before I go, I'm cycling through water while I'm traveling, and then I store it empty when I get home. I've never found it an issue. I don't even clean them out. I just give them a rinse. I've never had anything build up inside. So probably is a consideration, but if you've got water going through it all the time, I wouldn't worry.
I mean, they're also easy to fill, and I guess if you're storing them in, or you've got varying different capacity sizes and possibly you have limited room or different places where you can store water, you can sort of either Tetris them or put some on the back or maybe some on a trailer and some in your car. You can sort of make it work and fit it in where you have space when you have different container options like that.
That's what I like about the small ones. You can put them in different spots. It's also a safety consideration to a degree as well, in that if one of your vessels gets a leak and you've got 3 10-litre vessels, one of them gets a leak, you've still got 20 litres of water. If you've got two 20-litre containers and one of them gets a leak, half your water's going to be gone potentially, and you've got 20 litres of water in the boot of your car. So
that's true.
So if you spread it out over multiple vessels, then you're minimising that chance of losing water. So.
One thing I don't like about jerry cans, which is going to bring us on to the next point because it's the reason why I don't really use them much anymore, is the fact that when they're empty, you still have this huge big container that's exactly the same size, that's doing nothing, that still has to fit in your car, and it doesn't really have the option of being used for other things. And so therefore it is just sort of like a bit of a dead space.
Yep, that's exactly
and they're being so bulky. So
I mean, you should have space in the car still because you've taken it with you.
Of course.
I always like to, as you go, there's more space that gets you create in the car, and it becomes easier to pack and manage in the car. But they're just dead space, aren't they?
Are.
And it's exactly why I think we're probably both on the same page here, where we upgraded to these other things we've got in front of us here, which is a soft cell. And they've always been around. Like in the MSR, I've made dromedary bags for a long time. And Sea to Summit have had these pack taps for a long time, but Sea to Summit recently brought out these water cells, which kind of made me stand up and go, that's a really good alternative to a jerry can because it lays flat. I can now put these under that shelf that I was talking about in the back of my car. So I've got this layer of flat water in the back of my car now, and I can fit 4 of them in there, 4 10-litre containers in there, for 40 litres lying flat in the boot of my car. So it stores really well. And like you say, when they're empty, I've then got 10 litres of extra space to function in.
Yeah, you can like roll them up, or they just fold flat or, you know, whatever. And they come in a couple of different options, like the MSR dromedary ones that you talked about. They're like quite a heavy duty canvas. And then there's your pack tap ones, which we've got a couple of those as well, just to have in the back of the car. You know, especially in summer, if you run out of drink bottles and you're out and about, it's good to fill up. But they're sort of like a fabric cover that goes over your classic goon sack style.
I wondered if you were going to say goon.
I was going to say goon sack. Classic goon sack style bladder, and that comes in a couple of different capacities. And then you've got the newer option, the water cell ones, and you can get it in sort of like a plasticky thing. If you're watching on YouTube, it's what we've got here in front of us on the table. Or they also do more of like a fabric version. Yeah. And that's the one that I've got.
Forward drive. Yeah, this one's good for hiking. It's a little bit lighter weight when you're really gram counting. But forward drive is tougher. Yeah.
But the thing that I like about the water cell is because I've probably got mine about I got the 20-litre one. I reckon I got a couple of weeks ago.
Which is a big thing for when it's soft, right?
But it's way more manageable than a jerry can.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. I just find it way easier, even when it's full to the brim. It doesn't make sense because it's science, but it doesn't feel as heavy as a big jerry can. And I think maybe because it's not rigid and it's not sort of as bulky, it's still sort of soft and you can bundle it up in your arms and carry it. But it's got like a strap that runs around the outside edge, so you can carry it a couple of different ways. And it's also got these little, I don't even know what the
Little
material
hooks
on
the
it is.
side. Yeah, it's like a hypalon or something they call it.
Yeah, and it's got the slits and you can hold it really easily. And I was holding it underneath the water filter because what we use with the water cells is we only drink filtered water at home. So we fill the water cell up with the filtered water only. And that way we know that's the clear designation for the drinking water. And yeah, I was just holding it by these two little slit things in the side, and the whole weight of it was borne while I just was filling it up, which was awesome. But then the cap on it, you can just twist the cap and pop this little silicone cover off and the water just comes out. So we just hang it up on a frame on our shelter. I just love it. I think it's really awesome. I find it way easier to manage than a jerry can, especially trying to, tilt it over and unscrew the bung and then put the tap in because you don't want to have a tap attached while you're traveling and things like that. And it's just, I don't know. I really like it. So I think we'll probably get a couple of more of those so we've got enough drinking water.
Yeah. I've got the 10 litre version and I've also got an MSR drum bag and it's the same thread on the end, and you can get, for both of them, you can get hydration attachments so you can have a hose coming off it. A shower attachments. The MSR one comes with, I know you can buy a little attachment for a shower thing, I think, and the Cedar Summit one comes with a little shower attachment. So it's really versatile. Yeah. And you couldn't do those things quite as well with a jerry can.
No, definitely not. And I think also being so flexible in fabric, even when they're full, you can sort of fit them in a bit better, or you can pack them in different ways and
squish them a bit.
What
about aftertaste? Because I know I've had a little bit in mind, but my family's extra sensitive to that. But I haven't used them that much yet, so I've only really flushed them through once.
Yeah, I know you did mention aftertaste, but because we only fill it up with filtered water, I wonder if there's a factor for that. I don't know, because Zan upstairs, like who's another camper in our office, she's got the water cells well. She said she didn't notice an aftertaste with hers, and I'm pretty sure she does filtered water too.
Maybe it's
so I don't know if it's something to do with Adelaide water.
Maybe that's what it is. I'll try filtered water next time.
Adelaide water's gross. But anyway, they're an excellent option, and I'm really glad I made the step to get one. I mean, I only just bought one to see how it goes, but I'll definitely be getting more.
We got 3 and I'm going to keep using them. I'll probably still take one jerry can because it is handy just to have one to sometimes fill from a river or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot less than the other.
I have thought about sort of cleaning them because they've got internal baffles and stuff to help keep the bag rigid, but it's just a matter of sort of giving it a bit of a shake and taking the cap off and drying it really well, just like you would a normal hydration bladder in your backpack, I reckon.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to another storage option. So you use those you've used jerry cans and lightweight vessels, but you've also you've talked about a larger tank in some of the cars you've had with like maybe a 12-volt pump attached. Now, this is not something I've looked at before, but I've always been concerned about having everything in the one vessel, and I know you can get pretty tough ones. Yeah, and also just the cheap availability of getting small vessels like we've got in front of us here. But you're saying it's actually not too expensive to go for a built-in water tank. It's not.
I mean, there's a couple of different built-in options. Obviously, if you're getting a camper trailer or a caravan, they'll often come with their own built-in water tank that also has pump built into it. What we had is before we had our Sprinter, we were using a Hi-Ace. It was just my partner's work van. So we would just pull everything out and chuck the bed in and all that jazz. And so we had bought I think it's like a 70 or 80 litre moulded water tank to fit in and build into the Hi-Ace that was designed for that van. Didn't have a pump attached to it, but we plumbed a particular kind of tap attachment, and it can get really heavy. So what we do, we also have, in addition to that, not a built-in water tank, but we use or we have in the past, don't currently use it, a couple of big 20 mil PVC pipes with caps on the end that we also fitted a plumbing attachment and like a pressure release valve into it.
Sorry, 20 mil. How big were they?
Like 20 centimetre round.
20 centimetre, right.
Yeah, big 20 centimetre round PVC pipes. I think like 2.5 metres or something with caps on the end. Yeah, right. And we had a couple of those. We did originally do an experiment where we painted it completely black with like this fireplace black matte spray on stuff, because we thought, if we fill it up and it's on top of the van and we're sitting somewhere for a week in the sun, maybe it would naturally generate hot water. And admittedly, when we sort of started doing that experiment, it probably was still in a bit of winter, so it didn't work as much. But then we gone on to a different solar hot water system thing that we've built ourselves. But that's like, I digress here, different topic. But And I think that stores almost 200 litres of water.
Yeah, okay.
And so that was on our roof racks, but that was really heavy. And similarly with the big 70, 80 litre built-in tank. And then again, when we're going to get a different built-in water tank for the Sprinter that we can fit up underneath the vehicle. But they can be really, really quite heavy, especially when they're within your vehicle itself and not attached to a trailer or something like that. So what we used to do is just take a hose with us that we just popped in the car, didn't take that much room. And then at the very last stop, as in the last town before we got to our camp, we'd just pull up to the roadhouse and use one of their taps, screw the hose onto it, and then fill up the water reservoirs from that tap system.
Okay.
And then that way you're not driving with the weight of that water. Those tanks are empty until you get to that place. And then you have as much water as you want. And obviously we would only sort of do that if we're going to be camping with all 6 of us and we're away for a week or more, because you don't need that much water.
Yeah. I've seen the pipes you talk about on a lot of roof racks, and I have wondered about the weight, but I guess your method there is saying it's not full for the travel. I use it to get water from tap to campsite when I'm at my location.
Yeah.
That makes a whole lot more sense than driving with 200 kilos on the roof rack.
Exactly. It's not feasible. It's not something that you'd want to do. I don't think so. That would have to be the only way that we would actually use that is if we have that option.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think that can be a little bit tricky when you're talking about much larger water tanks, especially built-in ones, is keeping them clean, because obviously it's not something that you can look into and regularly check and things like that. So, that is a factor of them.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
And they're quite often not opaque's not the right word, is it? Like they're like we talked about with the green water containers that you can't see through them, so you can't necessarily see if there's mold and slime.
Our old built-in one is black, so
you don't know what's growing in there.
Yeah, exactly. But you can get stuff for it. Like you can get like tank sanitization options and water purification options and things like that. I think we sell Biomagic is the brand that we sell, but there are other options available. Yeah,
there's a few we'll get onto water treatment shortly, but actually storage of water, you can use a Catadine and Biomagic make some products that you put in the water, large volumes of water, if you're storing it for a long time to try and stop it from going slimy. Not something I've got experience with, but probably something if you use a big tank like that you do need to just have a think about. I'm going to do a bit more than just fill it up from a mains water tank and hope it doesn't get slimy.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing as well is for us, when we do go on those trips where we need to take a lot of water and we have to fill it up from a tap, we also take a water filter with us. And then that way we don't have to take our drinking water all the way from home and have all of that sort of stuff. And you can get different kind of ones. The water filter we take, it's a little bit bulky and a little bit sort of possibly annoying to cart with us because it's a home-based benchtop one. But there are other filter options like we sell, I think Platypus is the brand. It's like a gravity water filter bag and it can do 4 litres in like an hour, and it's a really awesome option. You just hang it up in your tree and it goes from the unfiltered bag to the filtered bag, and then you can just, dish it out whenever you want. And that's a great option, I think.
Yeah, I always go, I've got a hiking filter, an old Catadine one, and I always take the water I've got with another backup that if I need to turn whatever water I can find into drinkable water, I can filter and also carry just some tabs or something as well, because you can turn pretty festy water from a puddle into potable water if you filter it and treat it. So I've always got that backup as well, some form. But the Platypus one you talk about, the gravity ones are a more affordable option for something that a little bit like a first aid kit, I suppose. Maybe you take it with you in case you need it.
And the thing that I like about that particular filter over other ones is, again, when you're talking about minimalist packing and storage space and things like that, it's literally just a couple of bladders and a bit of silicone hosing. So they do roll up and they do pack up quite small. It's probably, I don't know, you could probably fit it in a 7-litre pack sack or something like that. Stuff
smaller.
sack.
I mean, the filter itself is probably 15 centimeters long and 3 or 4 centimeters in diameter. They're pretty small, and the bladders are more volume than the rest of it. So if you're camping near a water source that's not potable, then having something like that's a really good way to not have to worry about all that weight in your car and treat it when you get there.
I think it's always better to have more water than you need, though. So to make allowances for possibly taking more than you need is good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's for instances where you might, like, your car breaks down.
Yeah.
And I mean, if that in my scenario, and that is if my car broke down, I've got so much water left, and I sort of work out then the most important thing is water, and secondary is food. Obviously, shelter's another one too. But I'll sit there and not do anything, so we're not guzzling water too quickly, because you hope it's only going to be a day or two maybe. But if it's longer, you need to make sure you've got water to get you through. So don't go play soccer and do all that to fill in the time. Just kind of
definitely
if it's really hot. So.
What? Oh, sorry. No, you go.
I was going to say one thing that I never really thought about before, but it was mentioned in this episode and discussion beforehand, was that a large volume tank isn't as affected by heat. And I had to ask the question with that note that was left there, what do you mean by that? Because our producer noted it down in her research, and she meant, well, like 180 litres of water, if it's in a hot car, is going to take much longer to heat up. So you've got cooler water for longer than a heap of 5 or 10 litre containers, which are going to heat through pretty quickly.
Definitely, especially in hot weather.
Yeah, so just something else to consider. I don't know whether it's a pro or a con, but just one thing I hadn't thought about.
The other thing as well is whether or not you store water. Like, as if when you get home from a trip, if you've still got a reasonable amount of water in your tank, what do you do with that? And I think a lot of people would like to leave it there, or a lot of people possibly even fill up their tanks ready for their next trip well in advance of time. That's not what I do. I personally make sure that everything is empty when I get home and everything is dry, just because I feel like it's a safer option long term, not just, for the water health, but also for your tank and or your jerry cans or your water cells or whatever, to be able to be dry and just have airflow through them and things like that. So I would probably personally be emptying out water and not actively storing it.
Yep.
But I think if you are somebody who does want to store your water, you can get water purification stuff. Like I know we touched on it before, that you can add into your tank or into your jerrys that will keep water safer for longer.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. Like the idea of possibly storing water for up to 6 months or something, it just doesn't really appeal to me. And I don't like the idea of having to add chemicals or other components to water that you're then going to consume just for the sake of convenience. I'd rather make more time for myself in planning the trip to ensure that I've got fresh water straight up.
Yep, I'm with you there. I store everything dry and empty. I think one difference I've had is when you're speaking in a sort of hiking sense, that people have a 2 or 3 litre bladder, and they'll quite often, because you hike probably a bit more often than you go on a big camp, right? Yep. So you probably don't, like I don't know why I'd need to store my 40 litres of water in the jerry cans in my shed. I can just fill it up before I go and store them dry afterwards. But from a hiking perspective, if you want cold water or refrigerated water, if you're storing it in a bladder, you can fill that bladder up and just put it in your fridge, because you probably only got it there for maybe, I don't know, hopefully you get out every few weeks or something like that, every week or two, and then you've got cold water straight away. So when you get home, rinse it out, fill it up again, put it back in your fridge, but store it in your fridge. Probably stores fresher that way. That's, I don't know where I've heard that. It's been in the back of my mind for many, many years now in the industry. And it seems to do the job. Personally, I've not ever done it because I don't like really cold water when I'm hiking. I just fill from the tap. So, but if you're going to store it in a bladder for a long time, maybe put it in the fridge. But I reckon just store it dry. That's my thoughts. Yeah,
me too. Well, I think we've probably talked a little bit about the water storage options. Well, not a little bit, but a fair amount about it. I don't know if there's anything else that I've got to add personally, because I think we've covered a lot of stuff. But if you do have any other questions, or there's something that you think we've missed, as I said before on the Facebook group, just jump on there, chuck your questions on, or possibly give us some of your hot tips with storing water for your trips as well.
Yeah, I think so. It'd be good to hear everyone's, because there's no right way to do it, but it'd be good to hear everyone's opinions on this. Any links to all the products we talked about, we'll stick it in the show notes down below. As Lauren said, jump on our Facebook group and let us know your thoughts on water storage and transport. Don't forget to subscribe, like Lauren said earlier, YouTube or on your podcast app, wherever you tune into us. And check out all the products we talked about and heaps more info at snowies.com.au. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. See you guys.